In this video I'm going to show you how to weather up and rust up a girder, and the pieces in question that I've been working on are mock-ups, and these are just the Vari girder from Will's kits, and that's SS57. Now I've just put 2 panels of 4 on a bit of plastic card there, and I primed them to start with, and then I've gone through 3 or 4 different steps to get from pristine to badly weathered, rusted, peeling paint. As you probably see there, if the light will allow you, the chipping and rusting and the streaking effects as well of the rust. Now this is the girder that I'm going to use on the area at the retaining wall, and I've made myself a section that is the right measurement. It's quite a long section, and it'll be supported in the middle by a buttress and a pillar, and this is just being primed at the moment. But what I'm going to show you to do is change that into that, which is heavily rusted, and then apply paint and then the chipping and streaking effects. And this is the one that I'm going to use on the actual layout. As you can see there, it's got different tones, textures of just general rust, which will form the foundation, if you like, for everything else that follows. I've covered the entire girder in the rust, from the edges to the surface. It doesn't matter if you're going to have a little rust showing or a lot of rust showing, you can coat it all. And it's just about the areas that you decide for the rust to come through, so it's totally in your control. But at the moment, all covered in rust, and I'll show you how to do that. I've not done this side here. Now, first thing we need is Humbrol matte coat and enamel thinners, and what I've done is I've mixed up a 50-50 mix here, and all I do is I give it a liberal coating in the mix. And this is a foundation really for taking the powders to give it that rust effect. So I'm going to work my way along. Don't, if you're doing a large section, I would just maybe do 3 or 4 panels at a time, or a longer section of maybe girders or a structure you're doing. You don't want the mix drying out too much before you start to apply the powders, or powders they'll not liquidise, if you like, and you'll end up with more of a gritty, grainy finish. So I've done 4 panels on the edge there as well, which has not already been covered by the previous efforts. There we go. Right, so you can see it looks wet. Now all I do is I take my weathering powders, and what I've got here is I've got the Humbrol weathering powders. I've got rust, oxide and dark earth. I'm just going to take a selection with the brush, just put it straight in, you take off some excess, and then just stipple it into different areas. Now you do not want uniformity. That's not what happens when, you know, structures rust. They're going to, you know, rust at different rates, be exposed to different elements and, you know, pollution, so they're going to react differently. And you just hold it there. Now if you do get it too uniform, you just go over with another colour and stipple it in. There's some rust there. And if you do go in it and it looks a bit powdery, just keep dabbing. And if you need to apply more of the 50-50 matte coat and enamel thinner mix, just do it. It will dry a bit darker than it is just now, so don't think, oh my god, that's bright orange. It will dry darker. Okay, and you can just paint it, or you can stipple like I am. But by stippling you're getting more of a random effect. And these colours you know, they would give a good variation, and they, as soon as they hit the mix, the fluid, you know, they alter in colour and they flow nicely. And that's the whole purpose of putting that base fluid on, is to allow them to flow. It will not end up powdery, and if you do it right, it won't end up gritty either. What you don't want is all the same colour. You want a bit more light rust in the middle there. Dab it in, take the excess off and just stipple it. And if it is a bit dry, it will start to soak. I'm just going to show you those 3 panels and I'll continue doing the rest. Okay. It looks pretty glossy and bring the light down a little bit there. It's pretty glossy and shiny just now, but trust me, it will dry matte, hence the matte coat there. Right, I'll continue doing the rest and I'll come back when it's all done, but you can see there it's already starting to look rusted, and it will dry to be like that. The next phase in the weathering process is to start to cover up bits of the rust with the Humbrol mascol. Now what this does is it dries on the surface, so then when you spray paint or paint over it, it obviously doesn't cover the rust underneath the mascol, and then you just peel the mascol away to reveal this kind of like rusty, speckled, streaking scenario. As you can see there, the rust is dried, it's fairly mottled in different levels of oxidisation. It actually looks quite smart just like that. I'm sorely tempted just to leave it like that, but it's a bit too intense rusting. So what I use obviously is the Humbrol mascol, and it dries very quickly, so you've got to kind of work on a small section at a time. So I'll start along the end of the girder section here, and you can either pour it into a little bowl, but it does dry very quickly, or I put a little bit onto a cotton bud, and if I'm wanting to do the kind of large patchy speckled areas, I use a bit of polyfiber or a bit of the, you know, the green scourers you get for doing the dishes. For the areas along the bottom of the girder where maybe the rust is more intense, where the waters lay over the years and a lot of the paint is missing, I use a cocktail stick, and I just dip, well, either dip it on from the end of the cotton bud, and you can see this in the camera okay, but just kind of dab it where you would like the rust to be. Now you might not be able to see that particularly well because it just a slight purple haze just now. It dries to a kind of dark see-through purple, and just obviously if too much on it, just stipple it along there, maybe some right into the rivets, detail at the bottom. Now I don't want the bridge looking like it's been there for, you know, hundreds of years, never had a coat of paint. I'm just wanting to start in the early stages in some cases of the rust coming through. So as you can see, hopefully there, I've stippled it along the bottom with the cocktail stick, and already it's starting to dry on the cocktail stick, so you've got to keep kind of reapplying it to the stick. A wee bit in there. Now, it's all very well having a rusty bridge, but you don't want it to look too uniform, so just maybe vary where the rust's coming through. It doesn't come through all on the bottom at once, you know. Some obviously the paint will be there for longer periods and not give up and flake off quite as quickly as others. So if you see an old car, you know the rust comes through in certain places and not others. So you're trying to give it that kind of effect. So I'm not doing every single bit of the bottom of the girder there. Some bits will be more intense than the others. Now if you make a mistake, or you think you've put too much of the mascol on, like I think I might have done there, what you could do is you just wait till it dries and then rub it off with your fingers. It just peels off. It's like a sticky label. So I'm just going to keep working on the bottom section here, and again I'm trying to get it so it doesn't look the same. And then the edges of the girder as well, very similar. If you've not got it already, just vary where the rust's maybe showing. Okay. On the bottom I've already kind of stippled it. I don't know if you'll be able to see it because it is dry. Some bits sheen more than others. You can always see it in the light there where there's a slight glossy sheen. That's where the masco has dried. And on the other side as well, you can see where the stipple effect with the polyfibre right in the middle of the girders has dried. So to do that on this side, get yourself try and manipulate it so it's not a big huge clump, and get your, there's a lot of waste here by the way with the masco. I tell you, put it on the desk. You could always pour it onto a little bit of plastic card or something. So you kind of load up the area you want and then almost take off the excess and lightly, get the camera shot here, start with this one, lightly just stipple it where you want the rust to be. Okay, and then just continue. Now it's not going to rust in the same place on every single panel, so again vary it, and if you get to a stage where you think this polyfibre is getting a bit clogged because it's dry, the masco's dried, then just, you know, scrunch a bit, round a bit, so you're using a different section. Okay, and just keep going there. I want every girder to have a little bit coming through, but sorry, every panel to have a little bit of rust showing, but not masses of flaking. And how did I get the kind of pattern for this? I just basically googled girder bridges, railway girder bridges, and there are a couple in my local area that I stopped and had a wee look at, took a couple of photos just to get an idea what I wanted to achieve. And that's really what you've got to do. Use a bit of imagination as well, which for some people is you know, is easy, and some people you will see you're better looking at photos. Now the end ones will be hidden by the buttresses, but I'm still going to put a bit of rusting on there, because just because it's, you know, covered initially by a bit of brickwork doesn't mean to say that the water's not got at it. And if it's not too good, nobody's going to see it anyway. The risk here is going overboard, and I find myself doing that. I think, oh, I like a bit more there, a bit more there, and before you know it, it's like it's stripped of all the paint and looks a bit over the top. Okay, that's me done it all now. I'm just going to let that fully dry, and then I'm going to spray it with acrylic matte 64. Okay, that's the paint dry now on top of the mascol and the rust paint, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove the mascol to reveal the speckled rust. Now I've done it on the other side, as you can see, and I've worked my way along. You show you how patchy I've made the rust. To make it like it's, you know, in its decline. It's not totally rusty and, you know, paintless. And on the bottom there as well, the speckles and the flaking and the rusting. what I've used for that, or what you can use for that, there's several ways to do it. If you get into the little nooks and crannies, the best way really to do it is get your cocktail stick again and just rub where you had the maskell along the bottom edge. So if I do it on this side where I know I've got some to remove, I just kind of scratch with the side of the point, and I'm just taking off a little bit there of the maskell to reveal some of the rusting. Now you'll be able to tell where the maskell is. If you look close at it, you can see where it's kind of raised, and it's not quite as flat as the non-rusted. Obviously the rust paint gives the whole thing a bit of a texture as well, so you know, be careful you're not scraping the wrong bits. There's a bit coming off there, which is the maskell. Now it comes out quite stringy. Usually just picks it off or blow it off into the desk. Okay, that's the areas on the bottom now. If I'm just removing some of the rust there, I can see a wee bit there just to take off. The other way to, or one of the ways to do it for the panels, is to use kind of white tack or modelling putty or blue tack. It worked well with this, where it was heavy rusting and a lot of the maskell underneath, but I've only got little bits of the maskell here, and you know, I could sit there all day and pad away with this. But what I've found is taking a good old ordinary bit of sellotape and just placing it on, and then as you can see there, it's starting to come off. The rusting is coming through. So you have to kind of keep changing it, because it picks up quite a bit, as you can probably see there, just speckles of bits and pieces. So you know, just basically work your way along. You can see the rust starting to come through just by the tackiness of the sellotape. You know, it's got to be decent enough sellotape. You don't get you know, the Scotch tape will not do it. That's kind of low tack. And your Tamiya masking tape, I'd imagine as well, will be too low tack, because the whole point of putting that over painted surfaces is that it doesn't lift the paint to the layer underneath. So you need something with quite a high tack on it. But, you know, it's going to kind of stick. And it's like kind of ripping off a plaster scenario. Be quite heavy-handed with it. Once that bit's done, you know, get yourself another bit and go for it again. You can see there now what's happening. Because there's some little bumps there where I've got the maskell. You could choose to leave them, because it actually gives the effect, it's not going to fall off, it gives the effect that there's some, you know, blistering of the paint, and that paint is about to come off next. Or if you want to add a bit more rusting to it, you just keep doing it with your, you know, your sellotape, and just keep tacking away. Now before I annoy you even more with these noises, I'm going to finish this off and I'll come back and show you the final stage. So far it's looking fairly decent. For the riveted areas, I just certainly used a bit of tack and I rubbed it, you know, and there's not a lot of rusting on the top here, so there's not a lot coming off, but I just rubbed it, and on the raised heads of the rivets and stuff, it lifted some of the paint, as you can be seen there. The next stage is quite a fun part because I've got obviously all the mask all off. Because I've got an acrylic top coat covering an enamel based base layer, if you like, in the form of the rust, I can reactivate those rust colours by just taking neat enamel thinners and just dabbing it over the area I want to reactivate. Okay, and if I want it just to kind of like have a outward spread of rust, I just keep manipulating it like so, and I just leave it like that, and it gives the form of a little bit of, bleeding outwards from the initial rust spot. So that's one way to do it. Another way you can do it is if I just dampen this one and give it a bit, a bit of time just to wet the base layer. If you keep doing that and it comes off in your brush, and you know you've got some to use, and then just put your brush downwards, and it gives the impression of some streaking, as obviously the rain has washed the rust down the panel. And you don't want to overdo it because it just, well, I'm not going to overdo it. Well, I'm going to try not to anyway. I'm just going to again just activate the enamel and the matte coat rust wash, and just dab. Once you've got a little bit of brown on your brush, actually just go to the ones beside it and just stipple them until the brown starts to kind of seep outwards from the initial chip. Hope you can see under the light. I've tried to position the light so you can. It's not easy when you're doing such small work under a spot. So I'm just stippling that to reactivate, and then just a slight downward motion, obviously parallel with the edges so it's running vertical, like gravity. And there we have a streak. So I'm just going to go and work my way, doing some bits and pieces, random streaking. If I want some more down, say the bottom here, that's the same scenario. You just wet the area with the thinners, and it's, for example, say you want some streaking down the rest of the actual front, you just would do the same. Stipple that a little bit, and it looks like it's just kind of washing down onto the rest of the surrounding area, and just blending it in, really softening it. So it's not just grey or stark rust, it's like it's kind of bled out and moved a little bit with the moisture. So I'm going to finish that, and then I'll get back and do the very, very final stage. Final part of this process is adding some weathering powders just to tone down the starkness from the rust to the grey paint. As you can see, what I've done there is I've given it a bit more of a feathered in look with the the rust and dark earth weathering powders that have been applied dry, and it just gives the bridge an overall general grimy look, like the paint's not been obviously touched up in a few years. The final part of the process to get from my rusted flaky paint to an in-world look, if you like, for the bridge is to add some weathering powders to the structure, just to blend in between the stark grey and the rust speckles, and it just gives it a general daily grimy, dirty look. It's over a mainline railway. There's going to be a lot of exhaust fumes and stuff. It's near an industrial estate. Well, it will be when it's built. There's dust and fumes coming from those. So I wanted to give it a kind of more blended in look, so it doesn't like quite so grey, and that's just be applying the Humbrol weathering powders dry. And to do that, you can take I have an old brush here that I've kind of turned into a kind of stipple, and just to get the areas along the bottom here, for example, I would just stipple in the colour that I wanted. I've got the rust and the earth here, and I just stipple it in, and then you can brush off the excess with a bigger brush, and that could kind of use to feather it in as well. And you could obviously thing it up the way so it's not quite as stark. It gives a general grime. It takes the greyness away from the panel, but it still maintains the fact that it was at one point painted nice light grey. So if I continue, you can already see hopefully on this section here where it's more blended in, and that's more grey and stark. And if you happen to make a mistake with the weathering powders, just take a damp cloth and wipe some of them off. They are not sealed in place yet. The final stage will be to seal them in place with a light brushing or light spray of matte varnish, and it locks everything in place, and that'll be ready to put on the layout. Hope you enjoyed this how-to video. It's the first time I've used this technique on the layout, and it won't be the last. I do like the grimy, rusty look, and if you look at one of the links to my first weathering a girder video way back at the start of the layout, I've used another technique there where I've not gone with the speckled, I've just gone in with the dry powders. So this kind of builds on the first of those videos I did way back years ago. Any questions, any suggestions, any comments, please do get in touch, and thanks for watching.